several extraterrestrial races have already begun exploring the rest of the cosmos before the arrival of humanity. On the planet Samaris, Mills is telling his wife Alia that he has taken a 2-year exploration position as he watches their daughter Navine play on the beach. He often performs short runs, but this time he needs the extra cash to cover Navine's illness care. After teaching Navine how to whistle with her hands, Mills eventually speaks with her about his travels. Later, Mills is the captain of a ship with a crew that is in cryogenic slumber. On one occasion, the ship meets unexpected meteorite activity and is repeatedly struck by meteorite fragments. Mills runs to the cockpit and sends an emergency signal while directing the spacecraft to land on the closest planet as the ship starts to fall apart. In the end, the ship splits into 2 pieces, and as Mills watches the unavoidable collision, he remembers his daughter before passing out. A little while later, Mills awakens to the computer stating that they are at an unknown place. He finds a piece of metal lodged on his stomach and proceeds to brutally remove it before cauterizing the wound. The cryochamber is compromised, so he dons his astronaut suit and starts examining the spacecraft to assess the damage. Mills exits the spacecraft and enters a pool of water where a mystery creature swims around him after grabbing a laser rifle just in case. He also discovers the remains of his whole team and is heartbroken to learn that no one survived. Mills sends another SOS message stating that he is in unfamiliar region after examining the entire ship for damage and discovering the escape pod is on the other half that crashed someplace else. Mills pulls his revolver with the idea of ending everything since he feels trapped and hopeless, but Navine's memory prevents him from doing so. Afterwards, in an effort to hear Navine's voice once more, Mills collects all of the cassettes containing the messages she has been sending him. All of a sudden, the computer spots a functioning capsule nearby. Koa, a passenger, is discovered to be still alive inside the vehicle when Mills arrives to inspect. He gets her out right away. Mills discovers a large paw print on the ground as they make their way back to the ship, revealing that this planet was Earth 65 million years ago, and that Mills is surrounded by dinosaurs. When darkness arrives, the two make it aboard the ship, and Mills spends the night dreaming about Navine asking him where he is. The following morning, Mills is committed to leaving in order to only save the girl. The ship's computer is used by him to try to locate the second half of the craft, but the scan is unsuccessful. Following that, Mills ventures outdoors to investigate the area and finds enormous bones that show how scary the neighborhood predators are. Also, he unintentionally receives a hot geyser blast that he has never seen before. When he regains consciousness, he notices a dazzling object in the distance and understands that the second ship's half is on a distant mountain. A short scan verifies it, and just as Mills is deciding which direction to go, a little dinosaur attacks him. During a brief fight with the beast, Mills knocks it to the ground and shoots it repeatedly until it falls to the ground dead. As Mills goes to check additional noises coming from the woods, he finds Koa has deserted the ship. As soon as she sees him, the girl starts fleeing, and Mills follows her until they both tumble over a ledge and come across a large yet dead dinosaur. As soon as the trees began to shake, Mills noticed a larger beast approaching and grabbed Koa to take her back to the ship. He attempts to explain the problem while he tends to the injury she sustained when she fell, but it turns out that they don't speak the same language and the ship's translator isn't functioning. Mills sketches the mountain with the pod and distributes a crimson powder on a tablet to illustrate his thesis that they need to go there to get away. Koa follows him and recognizes her parents as soon as she hears the word family. But Mills lies and claims her family is also on the mountain to calm her down. Following that, Koa discovers the recordings of Navine while Mills issues a new SOS broadcast announcing the discovery of a survivor. Navine's sickness worsened throughout the first year of travel, forcing doctors to admit her to the hospital. It is revealed as she observes them all. At the first, she sent her dad joyful and proud notes, but as time went on, she started to get upset with him since he wasn't there for her. Koa is caught watching the videos, and Mills shuts them off right away and says they are going. After he has enough food and supplies, Mills and Koa go off through the forest, being careful to be silent so as not to attract any predators. Although the journey is lengthy and difficult, they get closer each time Mills assists Koa when she stumbles or needs anything. Koa notices something burning red in the sky one day, but she keeps quiet about it. Finally, Koa gets tired of all the traveling and decides to disturb Mills by throwing some berries at him from a nearby bush. Koa is told not to play with the berries by an irate Mills, who uses his scan to demonstrate that they are toxic. Later, as Mills kills a large beetle that has landed on his neck with his hand, his fingers become covered in an unpleasant sticky substance. Koa laughs as Mills attempts to brush it off on a tree, but it is so powerful that he falls and has some bark attached to his hand. Mills attempts to touch her with his unkempt hand to tease her back, but their little game is stopped as a tiny tree falls in front of them. The group discovers a little dinosaur trapped in a pit of the goo after hearing strange noises coming from behind a cliff. Koa feels awful for it and rushes to assist it, which Mills considers to be too risky. Mills ultimately assists her in finishing more quickly since she won't listen. The tiny animal leaves as soon as it is set free, but only a few feet later it is attacked by a pack of predators, which promptly devours it. Koa is dragged into a hiding place by Mills so she won't have to see her buddy being eaten, but she can see what is happening and sobs. The two continue their trek after the dinosaurs have disappeared, pausing at a waterfall to clean themselves and replenish their water bottles. While Mills is concerned about the condition of his stomach wound, thinking about Navine, while watching Koa gives him the motivation to continue. In order to get Mills to let her put one of the gorgeous flowers she finds in his hair, Koa disturbs him. Once Mills' scanner loses track of the mountain a few minutes later, he decides to climb a tree for a better vantage point and rescan the region. When he shakes his arm to remove a bug that he's discovered on his hand, the branch breaks, and Mills falls, dislocating his arm. A number of dinosaurs notice the disturbance and start to go toward the area as Koa assists Mills in pushing his arm against the tree to try to put it back in place. Koa is forced to walk on Mills' arm for the final push to expedite the situation, and after he recovers he snatches the rifle and starts firing at the animals. Koa is also instructed to flee, and after she has gone a sufficient distance, Mills detonates a few little explosives, instantly wiping off half of the dinosaurs. Mills keeps getting attacked by the survivors as he shoots them one by one. Koa starts to crawl away to hide behind a tree while a group of flying dinosaurs descend nearby in the meantime. However, the previous animals track her down, and just as they prepare to attack her, Mills appears and kills all of them. But one is hidden and suddenly leaps on Koa from behind, dragging her off with its tail. Swiftly pursuing them, Mills fires at the beast to drive it away. As a result, Mills sits down and calmly allows Koa some space because she is now too terrified to go on or even be close to him. In an effort to soothe Koa down as it grows darker, Mills chooses to whistle as he used to do with Navine. The ruse is successful, and Koa replies by whistling in the manner unique to her family before deciding to continue. The two finally arrive to the cave where they would spend the night after a lot of traveling. Using his scanner to scan the sky, Mills installs some sensors that will alert them to any impending danger before eventually realizing the meteorite is approaching. He doesn't worry though, because it's a tiny one. Koa abruptly diverts his attention by telling him she had one of Navine's recordings with her. Although Mills initially reacts angrily, he eventually plays the tape because Navine comforts both of them. Mills tries to sleep, but he can't stop crying over the day Alia called to inform him Navine had passed away in the hospital. The sensors wake Mills up later in the night to alert him of impending peril. As he checks on Koa, he sees that an insect has gotten into her mouth. He uses a tool to kill the bug right away, allowing Koa to cough up all the leftovers. A massive dinosaur then materializes outside the cave as the sensors start to go berserk. Before he and Koa exit the cave through a small opening at the back, Mills fires it a few times. The two start seeking for a way out right away, not realizing that a smaller dinosaur is pursuing them. The pair is dismayed to find they have come to a dead end after much trekking and passing through small places. After spending several hours scarcely making any progress and finding a little opening between two boulders, Mills decides to quit up. Koa sees and she becomes enraged, insisting that they try again while repeatedly shouting, "Family!" Mills attempts to explain to her that they are dead, but she is unable to do so. Mills realizes he is without the necessary equipment and has an idea. He uses a few explosives to dig a hole big enough for a child before giving Koa the remaining bombs so they can be kept secure while she investigates. Mills attempts to follow Koa as she crawls through the little opening to make sure there is space on the other side. Sadly, when Mills loses contact with Koa, the hole abruptly collapses, causing him to shout in rage. Mills hears the dinosaur arriving at that very time, so he collects his weapon and heads back to the first cave, where he uses his scanner to determine where the creature is. Mills anticipates the creature's attempt to approach him from behind and starts to fire it, but the dinosaur smashes him and forces him to put down the rifle. The dinosaur then takes Mills by the arm and begins to bite it, but Mills fights it off and eventually makes it to his scanner, where he triggers a screaming sound that irritates the dinosaur's ears. After distracting the beast, Mills gets his rifle and shoots it. Koa arrives outdoors in the meanwhile. She wanders the forest by herself and discovers a large bone that she can use as a weapon. She wraps it in a large leaf and some poisonous berries and puts it in the bag. A few minutes later, Mills escapes the cave, and when he notices a massive meteorite approaching, he uses his scanner to discover that the meteorite he had previously seen was actually just a fragment of a larger one that will strike in a few hours and cause a devastating extinction catastrophe. He hears Koa cry as a dinosaur approaches her and promptly runs in search of her. When Mills sprints in her direction, Koa quickly hides beneath a tree trunk. But Mills trips and falls into a pit of quicksand. He attempts to summon Koa, but as he slowly goes under, he loses the ability to speak. As Koa hears Mills cry, she musters the confidence to go while waiting for the dinosaur to penetrate the tree trunk so she may hurl the explosives at it. Koa may safely cross the quicksand and lean over a tree to assist Mills in emerging from the hole now that the beast is dead. After exchanging hugs, Mills tells Koa about the meteorite as they continue running the final several miles. The group arrives at the mountain's foot in the evening. Koa cleverly knots the rope in an elaborate pattern around rocks and trees so that it can support Mills' weight as he climbs up with her after Mills wraps some rope around her. They discover the other half of the spacecraft a little while later, and Mills quickly goes on the computer to check whether a rescue ship is headed their way. After searching for her family and seeing all the wrecked cryotanks, Koa becomes enraged with Mills for lying. Mills pulls out a photo of Nevine and tells the woman he lost his daughter while he was on the job and that he can't let it happen again as she sobs. Koa cries and hugs Mills while apologizing profusely. As the smaller meteorite fragments start to descend to Earth all of a sudden, Mills and Koa scramble to board the rescue pod. A shard of meteorite strikes the spacecraft just as Mills is about to press the launch button, sending the pod hurtling down the mountain and knocking the two unconscious. Koa is the first to awaken, and he swiftly clicks the launch button. But the computer informs him that he cannot launch from this position. A massive dinosaur appears and starts assaulting the pod just as Mills starts to awaken as well. Mills is forced to take the risk of leaving the pod to get the pistol after it dropped to the ground, only to find that it is inoperable. Mills flees to a hiding place behind a section of the ship and adjusts the gun settings as a second dinosaur joins the attack. Koa snatches the Nevine tape and uses the scanner to play it in order to generate a hologram of Nevine outside the ship as the dinosaurs suddenly around him. Mills sobs as he anticipates one final encounter with his daughter before passing away, but it turns out that the dinosaurs were duped and attacked the hologram first. When the other pushes the ship in an effort to get to Koa, Mills emerges and quickly dispatches the first creature using this as a diversion. Mills pursues it right away, and after a few well-placed bullets, this dinosaur too perishes. The pod is now prepared for takeoff thanks to the creature's push. But the beast that Mills had shot earlier in the cave has returned and is now pursuing him before he can get back. Mills hurries to the geysers with a strategy in mind, forcing the dinosaur to walk into a scalding stream of water that smashes its face. Sadly, it doesn't do much harm, but just then Koa appears and uses the bone she had previously prepared to stab the dinosaur in the eye. When the dinosaur starts flailing and steps on top of another geyser, the explosion successfully burns it to death by striking it in the stomach this time. Following that, Mills and Koa return to the pod and are able to launch before an asteroid strikes Earth and causes the extinction of the dinosaurs. The autopilot directs the pod to the rendezvous location once it escapes the atmosphere, where a rescue ship will be waiting for them. Koa comforts Mills by holding his hand as he closes his eyes and acts as though he would soon be reunited with Nevine as they go for home.